Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Mirror Dungeon solo video. In today's episode, we'll be using everyone's favorite tax collector, Corp Don Quixote. All around, she's a very solid solo identity, both because she is incredibly tanky with one of the highest HP pools of any identity, and also because her passive allows her to instantly heal 80% of her HP when it gets too low. This passive is basically a get-out-of-jail-free card for when you accidentally get into a fight that's too much for her, but other than that, it's not the easiest thing in the world to activate because of just how well she can actually take a hit. The most interesting thing about her, though, is her Time Moratorium and Borrowed Time status effects. For her Borrowed Time status effects, it's mostly useless when soloing, and actively more of a detriment than anything else. It inflicts Dawn with Fragile equal to its stack, so with it active, she is taking upwards of 30% bonus damage. This drawback is absolutely not worth it when soloing, as Haste and Clash Power are both pretty worthless when an identity is already naturally fast and has good Clash Power. This makes its only real use is to ensure she does not consume 10 Tremor when applying Time Moratorium, which is absolutely not worth taking more damage for, especially when there are so many ego gifts that apply Tremor that losing 10 on an enemy doesn't really matter. This brings us to the status of Time Moratorium, and the strongest aspect of her kit. This status prevents enemies from taking any damage and instead stores it all up until it eventually falls off, at which point it will burst all of the damage instantly, more often than not resulting in the enemy instantaneously exploding. You can trigger the burst early by applying Time Moratorium a second time, but typically you'll want to avoid this as it will actually reduce the amount of damage you're dealing. The only time you wouldn't want to use Time Moratorium is if the enemy you're attacking resists sloth damage, as it will convert all of the stored damage to sloth. Against every other enemy though, it's always worth using as it will increase the amount of damage done by 15 to 30% depending on if you burst it early or not. Of course, this brings up a major problem in her kit, and that's her actual ability to apply Time Moratorium. She either has to use her borrowed time or have some kind of outside tremor count application, as she has none herself and will consistently be killing the tremor stack no matter what she does. We start this run by picking up the starting tremor gifts of Reverberation and the Oscillating Bracelet before entering the Outcast for our first floor. We also end up finding Lowest Star early on and are up against the Golden Apple for the first boss. This boss is barely a boss, and its only purpose is to give Gregor PTSD. Fortunately, we're not using a Gregor ID this time, so we're more than free to simply wail on the thing until finally finishing it off.
효율적인 대처로 개체를 꿰뚫었습니다. 참고로 기계는 입에 발린 말 따위 쉽게 하지 않아요.
For our reward, we take the Bell of Truth and are given Green Spirit as a bonus before heading into Lake World for the next floor. At the shop, we purchase Child Within a Flask, Phlebotomy Pack, Sour Liquor Aroma, and Temporal Brittle. We also find Special Contract before making it to the boss against the Twin Hook Pirates. These guys are definitely dangerous for a tanky identity, as the only thing that we're really scared of is bleed, which these guys have loads of. The one saving grace we have is that this is a multi-wave fight, and as such we don't have to worry about the bleed stack getting out of control early on. With the fight being so long, we can gate a load of skill slots to be able to prevent the amount of bleed coming at us, and by the time we're on the third wave, only Smee herself can get an attack through.
적들이 흔들흔들 기회 아냐?
해보겠네. 아직 징수할 내역이 남았으니 죽지는 마시게. 이러네. 대상 사망. 징수 진행 불가.
상황이 좋다고 할 수 없나?
해보겠네. 아직 징수할 내역이 남았으니 죽지는 마시게. 이러네. 대상 사망.
죽이겠다고 마음먹었다면 저렇게 손속의 자비가 없어야 한다.
해보겠네.
명심했습니다. 스승님.
이러네.
제압 대책에 큰 피해를 준 것 같아. 이 팀의 직원다운 완벽한 공격이었어.
개체에게 일격을 이 전투가 성공적으로 끝나면 모두 희생을 부르며 축배를 드는 것도 나쁘지 않겠죠.
아직 징수할 내역이 남았으니 죽지는 마시게. 연애 대상 사망 징수 진행 불가.
승객이 딱콩 한 방 먹였어. 보세요, 관리자님. 다들 역경을 이겨내고 유능한 직원이 되었어요.
연애 대상 사망
이번엔 도움이 됐을까요?
대상 사망 징수 진행
직원들이 개체를 제압하는 데 성공했어요.
해보겠네. 아직 징수할 내역이 남았으니 죽지는 마시게.
대성공이야. 가령 신나. 노래 부를까?
아직 징수할 내역이 남았으니 죽지는 마시게.
직원들이 개체를 제압하는 데 성공했어요. 이걸로 많은 피해를 예방할 수 있을 거예요.
해보겠네. 아직 징수할 내역이 남았으니 죽지는 마시게. 연애
칼날이 잘 드네요.
징수 진행
아마 그 공격이 약점이었겠죠?
연애
효율적인 대처로 개체를 꿰뚫었습니다. 참고로 기계는 입에 발린 말 따위 쉽게 하지 않아요.
연애 대상 사망 징수 진행 불가.
We take Nixie Divergence as our reward and receive Eclipse of Scarlet Moths as a bonus before we head into the Crawling Abyss for the next floor. Here we fuse Downpour while also finding Mirror Tactile Synthesia before we make it to the boss against the Ambling Pearl. Against an identity that is both resistant to blunt damage and has a ton of HP, the Pearl is really no threat. The biggest thing we have to worry about is the poison that constantly keeps ticking down on us, but G-Corp Gregor's support passive is more than enough to keep it at bay. The biggest difficulty of this fight was actually the fact that the skill check that appears for the Pearl shows up and passing it completely nukes our sanity. This results in our rolls becoming unreliable, and despite the fact that we absolutely have enough damage to kill the Pearl this turn, I choose to go through another full cycle instead, as I do not trust the rolls of neutral sanity.
개체를 벗어나고 있는 부위 중 하나가 파괴되었습니다.
해보겠네.
땡그랑 부위가 터졌어. 저희 직원들이 개체의 부위를 파괴했어요. 역시 미리 훈련하길 잘했죠?
이번 업무도
조금씩
여유 있게
나아가고
해냈지.
있네요.
해보겠네. 아직 징수할 내역이 남았으니 죽지는 마시게.
적들이 흔들흔들.
해보겠네.
될지는 모르겠.
해보겠네. 아직 징수할 내역이 남았으니 지금 마실게.
제법 좋은 일격. 저런 실력 있는 해결사가 도시에 알아줘야 할 텐데 말이야.
해보겠네.
We take the melted eyeball as our reward and receive the venomous skin as a bonus before heading into time-killing time for the next floor. Here we buy Biovenom Vial and the Chalice of Trickle Down while also finding Silver Watch Case and fusing Clockwork Spring before finally making it to the Time Ripper. It's certainly not an easy fight with us being weak to Pierce, even his little robots do a ton of damage to us. So much so that we need to use Fluid Sac to survive the second turn. We quickly make it to the second phase as the Time Ripper being weak to sloth damage, Time Moratorium hard carries our damage. Even with the Time Ripper gaining a bunch of different parts and his massive increase to offense level, our Clash power is far too much for that to even pose a threat, and we can beat all of his skills no problem, letting us finally collect the time tax we were owed.
적합한 관리법이었어요. 다행이에요. 입에서 갑자기
그렇지 않아서 좋. 방금의 공격이 정답이었다.
방금의 감각은 기억합니다.
이번 의뢰도
해보겠네. 위험해. 예상 사망. 진행 불가.
저희 직원들이 개체의 부위를 포기했어요. 역시 미리 훈련하길 잘했죠? 방금 어떻게 하신 거죠? 깜짝 놀랐어요. 곧 위험한 공격이 찾아올 거예요.
해보겠네. 아직 징수할 내역이 남았으니 지금 마실게. 징수할 내역이 남았으니 지금 마실게.
쨍그랑 부위가 죽었냈어.
예상 사망.
계속해도 돼.
징수 진행 불가.
We take Gathering Skulls as our reward and receive Fragment of Inertia as a bonus. Getting unlucky with not so interesting final floors, we head into Unbound Wrath. Here we buy an extra skill 3, Blood, Sweat and Tears, and Artistic Sense before finally heading into the final boss against the Brazen Bull. The Bull can prove to be a bit of a challenge, but unfortunately he is up against one of the worst identities he could possibly be. The only thing that would be worse is if we were sinking instead of tremor. Of course, the one thing the bull has going for it is that we are also weak to wrath damage, but a single use of fluid sac on the first turn quickly remedies that. With the bull being weak to both blunt and sloth damage, our skill 3s absolutely decimate the poor bovine, quickly resulting in a very early turn 4 kill.
효율적인 대처로 개체를 꿰뚫었습니다. 참고로 기계는 입에 달린 말까지 쉽게 하지 않아요. 아, 쌍화치 냄새.
바로 이렇게 늙은 일
나쁘지 않은 공격 건수였어.
공격. 다음에 다른 개체에게도 다시 해봐줄.
이런, 회수해야 할 시간보다 많이 징수해버렸네. 하지만 체납자가 생명을 다했으니 남은 시간을 T사 시간금고로 환수하는 게 옳은 일이라는 생각도 드는군.
And that's how I beat Mirror Dungeon 4 hard using only Corp Don Quixote. All around an incredibly easy run. Dawn is just so incredibly tanky that even against attacks she's weak to, they don't scare her that much. I'd say that the only bosses that could really prove to be a challenge would probably be either Ahab fights or the dream-devouring Slit Current. Alas, we were not fortunate enough to face them, but I believe that it would have certainly been possible. Anyway, that's it from me. Like and subscribe to not miss next time where we'll be using this character. Goodbye. I said it again. I said Slit Current. Fuck.